This video contains discussion about Ordeal Call 4 and also discusses some of the things that happened in earlier Ordeal calls. So, if you would like to avoid being spoiled, subscribe, click off the video now, and come back when you're up to date. Moving on with the video, hey guys, how's it going? This most recent Christmas event turned out significantly more Lovecraftian than I, or anyone else, had initially thought that it would. We have Abby as a Santa, Byakhee showing up as a new enemy, Foreigner buffs, the fog coming, and a whole new Lovecraftian deity, Bastet, showing up as an NPC. In other words, things are getting pretty ooky spooky and rumors are abound about a number of things possibly happening soon. While I could try and predict the outcome of what OC4 is going to be like, I'd rather put my collegiate hyperfixation to work and talk about some Lovecraftian deities we are likely to see pop up in the near future, be them future servants or enemy NPCs. So, let's dive into it. Let's start with the obvious one. Hoster, the King in Yellow. The Byakhee are servants to the Mad King, and them showing up could only mean that they are heralding his arrival. More specifically, they seem to show up to participate in rituals honoring their deity, so if we see a few rolling up in the Chaldean haunts, it means that we may not be too far from some kind of horrid ritual. Here's the thing though, Hoster already exists in Fate. She appears in Requiem under the alias of Euclid. Now, Requiem being Requiem means that we have no idea what on earth they're going to do with that information, but that they do exist. Hoster being a female would be weird if not for them also being an alien entity, which in Fate just means it's fair game for whatever. When I think of Lovecraftian deities that we have yet to see make any appearance in Fate, my mind is initially drawn to the Saga. Perhaps one of the most fun Lovecraftian names to say, the Saga appears as a giant toad-like god covered in bat-like fur, with massive drooping eyelids and a profound slothfulness. He is a deity who exists to consume and to be served, a true creature of laziness, and his cult is dedicated to this end. To serve his massive girth, servants will awaken him with sacrifices which he will immediately consume and then fall back asleep. If one does awaken him without a proper offering, the disturber will likely be consumed instead. The Saga is never without servants either, able to produce formless black creatures that can take on any shape and attack in any way imaginable. These formless masses exist to serve their god until the time that they inevitably are absorbed back into him. The Saga is malleable enough of a deity, and what his intentions are, to make for a formidable villain, possibly one whose slothful nature and desire to consume has led him to want to consume not just the inhabitants of Earth, but even the supernatural elements and mystics that it has to offer. To discern the intentions of a Lovecraftian deity is foolish, to say the least, but that gives them amazing story potential as threats. The Saga himself is also a shapeshifter, able to take on forms to remain hidden from sight, and can communicate telepathically with his servants. This is to say that us meeting a potential ally in OC4, maybe someone who appears relatively sleepy for some reason, would be a dead giveaway as to what their true form is. If you're curious as to why he may even be on the table for a potential Lovecraftian deity to show up, he is actually one of the most commonly mentioned in Lovecraft stories. He is tied for fourth with Azathoth in terms of story mentions, behind only the other big names such as Cthulhu. The Saga actually leads us nicely into another deity that appears in the same tale as the aforementioned toad, Ron-Tagoth. Ron is the main deity present in the store, the horror, and the museum, and appears as a giant insectoid-like creature with a blood-sucking proboscis. Ron is one of the newest Lovecraftian creatures to land on Earth thousands of years ago, but was one of the first to awaken. Ron itself is far from a powerful deity, still powerful enough to easily consume a person and still be considered a great old one, but by comparison to other deities, he is in the shallow end of the pool. However, that is because his role is not one of a great conqueror, but more of a herald for things to come. He is the Silver Surfer to Lovecraft's various Galactuses. Through him, others will soon come. This, I believe, fits well with a potential Foreigner chapter. He could serve as a villain for the initial part of OC4, and through his machinations bring about the rise of other great old ones. An interesting concept that they could do with this is to have the Foreigners that we already have become split, Abby and her Azathoth form split, Hokusai and her Cthulhu form split, etc. This then creates both a league of villains necessary to defeat, as well as running a risk of actually summoning some of these horrid entities. It would also make for an interesting idea that the Foreigners themselves do not become data lost per se, but that they just lose the connections they had to their Foreigner selves. So, rather than say Van Gogh leaving Chaldea, the Volthoom aspect of her is removed. Much like when they have done this in the past, I don't think it would have any effect on anything outside of story appearances. The last Lovecraftian deity I think we may see is Nyarlathotep, or from here on, Narla. I know that BB has aspects of the Great Trickster in her Summer Spirit origin as is, but leaning in with the theory above, this part of her may also become separated or be used to call upon the true form of the malicious entity. Narla is unique in Lovecraft's works as being one of the very few, if not only, old god to actually show some semblance of humanity. By that, I mean that there is a possibility to see what his motives are. And let me tell you, they ain't good. Narla, beside other goals we will get into soon, seems to loathe and hate humanity. As such, he wishes to see it, and possibly the entirety of Earth, destroyed. His reasoning for this hatred is not fully known, but could simply be as minuscule as the way some people hate insects simply for existing in their presence. Narla is notably an outlier amongst his kin, being that he is active in the world, not in extra-universal exile or eternal slumber. As such, he fulfills the will of his kin and throughout history has raised, groomed, and destroyed a number of cults to the pantheons as he saw fit. He acts as a servant for the Great Old One, Azathoth, though deems him an idiot despite this. So, this is to say, the likelihood that the Ordeal call is one where Narla, acting initially as a messenger for Azathoth, attempts to overthrow the extra-universal being and seize control, and then take over the Earth for their own, is possible. It could even work in a way similar to Ron-Tagoth, with Narla then attempting to usurp all the power of the foreigner class for himself. It would also open the door for Azathoth to show up in a servant form, though I find this highly unlikely due to the sheer maddening scope of his power. This leads us to our final point. Who is this girl? I have speculated in the past that this girl was going to be Lilith from Abrahamic mythology. However, if this is indeed a foreigner Ordeal call, could she still be Lilith? The answer is maybe. In the event that this is Lilith, the concept behind her being around Lovecraftian deities wouldn't be too far off the mark. These deities could be viewed as demons by some, and certainly they appear to be demonic enough to drive someone mad simply by looking at them. Lilith, being a mother of demons, may end up serving as an origin point to several of these outer deities. This also means that Lilith would have had to have been around for a significantly longer time than initially thought, and also that the Abrahamic religions would have to be wrong to some extent, which I don't think FGO wants to toy with too much. But they could use that concept. If it isn't Lilith, then it would have to be an old god in disguise, and fittingly, this being Nyarlathotep appearing as a domineering demonic woman wouldn't be incorrect. If this is the case, I look forward to whatever her third ascension is and how demented it would be. My final thoughts are simply that if this ends up being a ruler Ordeal call instead, and the whole of this video be made null and void, I sure hope you learned something Lovecraftian. On that note, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Check the links below for my socials, my Discord, and my podcast. If you want early access to these videos, check out the Patreon. Do all the YouTube stuff, but for now, keep your chin up. Peace.